I want to welcome everybody to our second core leadership team meeting for the Living Well from Within initiative within the Global Wellness Institute. And with Heidi's permission, I want to presence that she's had a painful loss, and begin by honoring that deeply and mindful in the context. We're here to do the work of living well from within, which is transforming challenge into healing, growth, and in time, wellness. And Heidi, I would love to just invite you to share however you want to honor Steve in this moment. And I propose that in this moment in time, that we honor the essence of his memory in the work that we're doing today.
Yeah, thank you. So it's interesting, I shared in our first meeting about how hard last year was for me and some decisions that I had made that were really difficult. And Danny, how much you meant to me, and hearing about your journey and wanting so much to be awakened and live life to the fullest. And I don't think I had any idea what was coming. So today, March 16th, 2021 would have been my stepson's 40th birthday. And last Monday, he called me and asked me to take him to the emergency room. He had struggled with addiction to drugs and alcohol his whole life. He's the youngest of 3 boys, and the one I was the closest to. And the thing I always say about Steve was, if you hugged Steve, if you were lucky enough to hug Steve, he would not let you go. He hugged harder than anyone I've ever met. He was highly sensitive, creative, loving, and really wounded. And I've learned so much since Monday. I took him, I've actually never met someone who was in major liver failure. And what now his friends and family have learned was basically he went home to die alone. And he trusted me enough to go pick him up and take him to the hospital. And I just kept telling him how proud I was of him for going, because I knew how scared he was. And we had really special time. And I had to call his family and tell them, if you want to see him, you need to come home. I booked a flight for my ex-husband, who then froze and couldn't even get to the airport. So I booked him an Uber. And I made sure his family was here. And so because I did that, Jon was able to spend time with him while he was still conscious. But Monday at about 2:00, I got him to the emergency room. And by Thursday, 3 days later, he passed. And it was, as crazy as this sounds, it was the most incredible experience of my life, because I didn't think I could do that. I think I may have mentioned I have vasovagal syndrome and all these things and hospital issues and trauma issues and all sorts of issues, but he needed me and I was there and I got him there. And so it's just, it's been a lot, but his friends, his family, everyone keeps reminding me how much he loved me, because he never felt judged by me, because I understood him. And so he's always with me, including this morning. I think he made me spill coffee all over my pants. The last couple of days sitting at Rancho Valencia out in the little hot tub, it's been pouring down rain in San Diego, and I know it's him. So it just was really special. And now his story becomes part of my story, because that could have been me. And I'm just so grateful I'm here. And getting to share and talk to people about addiction is just really a blessing. So I'm so thankful to you, Danny, and for this group. And as I said, a lot of people didn't know I was dealing with this. A lot of people didn't know I had just had a divorce. A lot of people didn't know a lot of stuff. I've lost a lot of people this year already. And unfortunately, we're going to lose a lot of people, especially to mental health and substance abuse. So I'm just really grateful to be part of this group so that we can do the best we can to
Heidi,
demonstrate it from within, literally. I've had 4 massages
yes.
this week, by the way.
So I would love, I said we wanted to dedicate this working session to him. What is the essence? What essence would you like to bring forward in his honor? Like if there was one strength or one value that he held most dear, that he expressed most boldly, how can we best honor that in our session today?
I have no doubt, and I've been sharing this with his friends, that everyone keeps saying, I wish I would have known. I wish I would have known that he needed us. I wish I would have known, I would have been there. And everyone was there. And the thing I remember the most about him when I was taking him to the emergency room was he was so positive, and we were laughing and we were cracking jokes. And he just kept saying, I'm so grateful for my friends. He had amazing friends who loved him. And we saw that just pour out this weekend when we had a memorial for him. So it's just love. And I would say unconditional love, just knowing that, we can't always save everybody, but we can be fully present with them in the moments that matter. And that's what he would have done. And that's what he would want us to do. So,
Oh. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, as we transition with his memory into the work at hand, it's seamless, because love is the greatest healer of all. Mm-hmm. Love is the greatest healer of all. So I would suggest we've already, last week, we claimed a loving space for ourselves. We claimed a loving space. We actually did the work of connection last week. And, I think what really resonates, what you've amplified this morning for us, is a reminder of connectivity. Giving and receiving love is the incubator of creativity. That gives us, I think we're already beyond psychological safety. I think this group feels incredibly safe with each other. And now this strengthens. I want to thank you for strengthening our love and belonging frame with the dedication of his memory, which frees us into doing the work of creativity. And this is the main thread of our vision today. So as I transition to Jon, I want to keep this very, very simple, and I don't want to get conceptual, but you're welcome to go back to the Living Well from Within Initiative homepage with it, where you'll find our why, our what, and our how, and our setting our context. In simple terms, our assets are the Living Well from Within initiatives, the Living Well from Within workshops that are an honoring of the awakening conscious leadership curriculum as inspired by conscious capitalism, as unlocked by the XCHANGE methodology. So that's just to ground us in the work that we have, that I'm going to invite Jon to share how we can actually bring this at scale to the world.
Can I just say one last thing before we finish this? Thank you, Danny.
Yeah.
I posted this already, but I just want you all to know, because I showed you my stress monkey last time, that this was the last thing that Steve did before he went into the hospital. This is his wallet. He put the monkey on his wallet, and I got to keep the wallet. Nothing inside, but I have to.
Right. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, Danny, thank you. Heidi, thank you for modeling and embodying for us the very work that we're here to be inspired by and to bring to others. The way that you've just right now shown us how, in the face of a tremendous tragic demand, you're finding resources is really inspiring for me. So thank you. Really appreciate it. What I'd like to do is I'd like to actually invite all of us to take one small action before we fully shift gears. And this is something at XCHANGE that we believe in moments like this, when a moment that matters and something that is surfaced that really matters, there's a beautiful way to honor that moment, not just through our reflection and our presence with Heidi and inspired by what Heidi shared, but also if we can take an action. So I'd actually like to ask, if all of you are willing, if I can create a 2-minute space. And in these 2 minutes, if you're willing and able to, in honor of Steve and Heidi, I was just listening to what you shared, some of his essence and strengths were. I'd like to ask that each of us leave this meeting, at least mentally, and send a note of appreciation or support to somebody who you think could use it. Is everybody down for that? Can I ask all of us to take 2 minutes and just send a note of appreciation or support to anybody that you think would benefit from it? I'll drop a little music in here. Royalty free. And we'll reconvene in 2 minutes. Thanks everybody for taking the inspiration and putting it into action. I'm sure it'll help somebody else. All right, I'll give you a moment just to bring whatever you're working on there to a wrap. If you got to hit send, great. If it's something you just want to follow through on afterwards and hit send, that's fine too. Of course, it's up to each of you, but you might choose to turn off notifications, as somebody might return that cycle of giving and receiving during this meeting, whatever you want to do. Thank you again, Heidi, and for giving us this space and for your courage. Thank you so much. Well, we're going to transition here, and Karina, Alexander, Marvelous Mo, Heath, Heidi, Dan, Sally, Wendy, Danny, thank you for your time today. And what we're going to focus on today is we've had a couple of gatherings between the first gathering that we all had. I'm sure some of you might remember our first gathering together. We played the game that we affectionately referred to as Creator's Choice. We all presented questions, we chose questions, and it's just a fascinating, elevating way to get to know each other. And today what we're going to do is we're really going to look ahead. And Sally and Wendy, Danny and Dan and I have had a couple convenings to prepare for this gathering so that we can present to all of you some next steps and to invite you to help us to envision what can become possible, building upon some of the next steps that are very clear at this moment in time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take probably 3 to 5 minutes at the very most, and I'm going to draw a simple picture for all of you. And as I draw this picture, I'm going to introduce to you some possibilities around how and where this initiative goes next. And then we're going to be inviting all of you into a creative conversation where we'll drop you into, and Dan Diamond, maybe you could help me with this while I'm setting the context here. If you could prepare maybe 3 different groups, Dan, probably it looks like it'll be a couple groups of 3 and maybe a group of 4. And we're actually going to have you go into some small groups just so you can go deeper in exploring what could become possible. And then we'll bring you back and each group can share some of the essence of what was talked about. So for now, I'm going to come over here. Can all of you see a piece of paper? All right, cool. So here we are today. And in a couple of months, one of the things that Sally and Wendy and Danny and Dan and I have talked about is how we can have a launching point or a kickoff point with a broader group that is referred to as the coalition. And the coalition is a number of folks who have influence with networks, communities, movements, organizations that have already raised their hands and said, we want to support bringing this work to the world, which is very exciting. It's a momentum to have right now to not take for granted and to appreciate. And this initiative, I'm going to put the name right here, Living Well from Within. As Danny mentioned earlier, this initiative is leveraging Danny's work on awakening conscious leadership and utilizing the XCHANGE approach to bring that work to the world. But how that unfolds and all the ways it could unfold is really for us and that coalition group to contribute to what that could look like. What we wanted to begin with is to leverage a strength and an asset that we know we already have, which is we know how to create a powerful experience introducing the work of awakening conscious leadership in a 2-hour workshop. So I'm going to put right here, 2-hour workshop. And so this is going to be a starting point, a jumping off point for us. And what we're looking at doing is actually hosting 2 of these, and we might even host them on the same day just so that we can create accessibility based on availability, and time zones, et cetera, et cetera. So we're looking at doing 2 of these 2-hour workshops. And to be clear, these workshops are based on Danny's work on awakening conscious leadership, utilizing the XCHANGE methodology. And just a quick kind of grounding and level setting for a few of you, if you're not familiar with, every time we say XCHANGE method, what does that mean? Because you're probably already very familiar with Danny's work. The easiest way to explain what it means to use XCHANGE in a learning environment, it's 3 simple things. Number 1 is it means we prioritize learning through experience versus just the content alone. So these workshops, and this is what we do, and we've done many of these, and we've done them with Danny, will be highly experiential. So that's point number 1. That's a foundational kind of paradigm of using XCHANGE in a learning environment. Point number 2 is that the learning coming from the participants and them learning from each other around the content is as important as whatever Danny might be presenting as the expert or thought leader, so to speak. So we talk about the power of crowdsourcing and turning participants into teachers. So for a percentage of time, a significant percentage of time during these workshops, the participants are actually learning from each other around moments when they've seen conscious leadership at work, and what can they learn from those moments. And then the third element or aspect of using XCHANGE in a learning environment, again, there's a few of you who, you have no context. So for those of you who are familiar, thanks for letting me take the time. The third element is that we do all of this in a way that builds a true sense of community amongst those who are coming together to learn. And that has an important meaning in these particular workshops, because the goal of these workshops here, there's 2 very straightforward goals. Number 1 is to create an experience for these participants that connects them to the important learning of awakening conscious leadership. But we are also going to be inviting these participants to help us imagine how to bring these workshops or how to bring this work to the world in bigger ways. So we really do want to invite a sense of community in a legitimate way. So what we're going to build from today, and we're going to invite all of you into a question in just a second here, is, and Sally, Wendy, or Danny, can you help me? I can't remember. I know we've talked about approximately when these will happen. What were we talking about? Sometime in May? Is that right?
In May, yeah.
Okay.
In May.
So these will be sometime in May. Mm-hmm. Here we are today. And the question we want to invite all of us to envision today is what might be possible coming out of these workshops? What could be possible coming out of these workshops? And I'm going to seed this question with a couple of examples, but really just as a thought starter, as a starting point. I also want to point out that it will not only be this coalition of influencers and influential leaders who will be invited to these workshops. And we might invite some of you to consider, who do you want to invite to these workshops? But we are also going to be inviting to these workshops all of the leaders of the other initiatives. It's hard to spell and draw at the same time. Initiative leaders across the Global Wellness Institute. All right, so they will also be invited to these workshops. So what could happen after these workshops? Well, one thing that could happen is the participants might be really inspired to see even more of these 2-hour workshops happen, right? So one of the questions that I've heard you raise, Danny Friedland, is how do we democratize this work? And one of the assets that we have, I'm going to put this over here, is at XCHANGE, we have a constantly, quickly growing group of facilitators, several hundred, and we're growing this group by 50 or 60 every couple months right now. In this group, we can create a way where they could help deliver these workshops to the world. So one possibility is that the group that participates in this says, how do we bring more of these to the world, right? And make this work accessible for many others. There is another possibility that they might want to invite folks to. We already have run. Danny's been doing it for a long time. We've been doing it together. We already have a 3-day version of that 2-hour workshop. We have one on the books coming up in June. They may have an interest in encouraging people to go to that. And because that workshop is owned entirely by Danny and myself, we have the freedom to make that accessible and however we want. So we have a lot of freedom, and if they want to leverage a 3-day workshop. But really, I'm going to put a question mark here. There's lots of possibilities that could come true around following these workshops. These groups right here, the attendees, this coalition, and the initiative leaders, there's a lot of ways that they might be interested in helping to bring this work to the world, whether it's through more of these workshops, a different version of these workshops, or even something else. So let me pause for a second. I'm going to give all of you a question, but before I give you the question around what do you see as possible following these workshops, is this clear enough at this point? Or Wendy or Sally, did I leave anything important out from your perspective?
Brilliantly stated, Jon. I think you covered it in such a clear way.
Okay, cool.
At least for me.
Cool. Well then, Karina, Alexander, Mo, Heath, Heidi, the question that the other 5 of us are bringing to all of you now is very simple. So the question I'm going to give you is really, what do you see when you think about what new possibility could come true following these workshops? Again, we're operating with an assumption that A, these workshops are going to create a fantastic experience. I'm going to ask us to trust in that assumption for now. And B, that at the end of the workshop, we're going to have an opportunity to invite the participants to help spread this work. So what we're doing is we're trying to invite this group today to begin the process of, thinking a few steps ahead. What is it that we might want to invite the attendees to these workshops to invite others to? And so that's really the big question is, what possibilities for how we scale this work, for how we democratize the work, for how we bring this work to the world, can you imagine right now following this initial 2-hour workshop? We don't want to give any other constraints. There's no, we've got a playground. We've got a blank canvas as to what could happen following these. We're going to start with these because we've done a lot of this, and we know that we can create a positive experience. And we know that this can create a moment in time where this group will say, yeah, how do we bring more of this to the world? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to put on a little bit of music here. And I'm going to give all of you about a minute to just brainstorm on your own. Grab a pen. Any and every idea that comes up for you around what could become possible following that initial 2-hour workshop that creates let's just trust right now, it'll create a powerful introduction to living well from within, leveraging Danny's beautiful teachings, leveraging the XCHANGE approach that makes it experiential and connective and brings people together. So for the next minute, just inviting each of you privately to brainstorm what are all the possible possibilities as to how we might invite the participants of these workshops to help spread this work afterwards. What could that look like? What could be possible following these initial workshops? Give you another 20, 30 seconds or so. Big ideas, bold ideas, small ideas. There's no good, bad, right, or wrong here. In fact, this is a time to invite the inner child to be a little outrageous. Right? Be bold. any possible way to help bring this work to the world, leveraging the momentum of these workshops? What new possibilities could we see that could come true? All right. I know I'm interrupting what might be deep thinking. Forgive me for that. The good news is, if you want to bring your thoughts to a close, you could bring it right into your group conversations. So here's what we are going to do. So I'm going to give you a very simple instruction, and then we'll be off and running. So you're going to be in small groups, and in these small groups, we want to create space. And how many do we have that'll go into the groups, Dan Diamond? So we have three groups of three. Is that right?
3 groups of 3, and then you get to pick which room you want to go into.
Oh.
Cool. All right, cool.
Which is dangerous.
All right, cool. So here's how we'll do this. Let me come back over here. So really simple. Here's 3 of you. Right? Not here for my art. The first thing you're going to do is just a round of sharing ideas. All right. And I'm going to encourage you as a group, and many of you have experience navigating, facilitating, leading your own group conversation. So you could do this any other way, or you could decide on the spot if you want to approach this any differently. But here's one way to do this, is give each person maybe a minute each, or a minute and a half, to each share what came up for them that they're most energized by. In fact, here's a helpful focusing activity, is for each of you to take a pen and circle what's the thing that you wrote down that gives you energy more than anything else. If you wrote down 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 ideas, you might underline, put a star next to, circle, highlight, what's the one idea that gives you the most energy. And maybe you let each person share. That's one way to do it. And you could do a couple rounds too. But I would tell you, create approximately 7 minutes total for sharing, right? And then the second step is to explore your ideas and look and see if there's any themes. There might be. Or if there's really something that was presented that's not a theme, but it's really energizing, right? And then decide if and what and how, or you will, so it's the what and the how, what do you want to present to the other groups? Was there a galvanizing idea that your group really got brought alive by? Or were there maybe a list of 2 or 3 that your group would really love for us to consider beyond these workshops? So whether your group comes out and says, here's one big idea from our conversation that we think really we should explore as we move forward, or if your group comes out and says, here's 2 or 3 ideas that collectively we were really energized by. Either way, we just want to create space for you to reflect out anything from your small groups that you were inspired by. Of course, you can select someone to represent your group, or you can all contribute. And you will be in these groups. It is 11:36. You're going to be in these groups for about 15 minutes, right? Because then we'll come out, and then you'll each have space to kind of present out. So, you can divide up that time however you want. You get the idea. You've got approximately 15 minutes. And if in your groups you have any other creative way that you want to come out of those groups and express what you could see could be possible, you're welcome to go anywhere you want with it. All right, is everybody ready to be divinely guided into a Zoom breakout room with your 2 new best friends for the next 15 minutes?
Oh, what's that?
There we go.
Well,
Yeah,
well,
it's a
well,
new
this is-
Zoom update. The breakout rooms only come your way when you go like this. I don't know who's in charge. Someone's got to push the button. We'll see all of you in 15 minutes.
Both were kind of on the same idea of empowering other people to take our message out, and how do we scale. And I mentioned that I have created several programs now with 3 different levels of certification. So in my stress mastery program, I have educators, trainers, and coaches. And so if someone goes to my stress mastery workshop, they can then become an educator, which allows them to share the message. They can become a trainer, which allows them to go into organizations with the content, or they can become a coach to do one-on-one. We also talked about maybe having an assessment, and Danny, you'll love this. I mentioned that Evian, I know, would give us access to his total brain assessment, which is the largest standardized assessment on brain health and performance, but we could customize that. And there's a lot of research on this database. So we could create our own Living Well from Within assessment, and the same thing, I do 3 levels. So there's a survey, there's an assessment, and there's an assessment with a coach. And because I've done all of this over the past 10 years, I have it all formatted. And so I was like, yeah, we're going to go out and do that. And thank God, Alexander was also in our group, because once I got finished deciding what we were all going to work on for the next couple of weeks, he reminded us that as a group, we still need to identify what our goal is and who we are and what we really want out of this. And I think there's, for me, the sense of urgency of like, we have to get this done and we have to get this done right now. But I'm so grateful that as a group, we also talked about what is it that we want to get done and how do we take Danny's vision and make this our vision, and kind of slowing down enough to make sure that we have our story right. Maureen mentioned that too, using storytelling. I mentioned using the new TV show that I'm doing as kind of a launching pad. But I think that we all ultimately agreed that we just want to make sure that we are carrying out the vision and the mission correctly, and that we all have a way to connect with that before we get too caught up in all the details.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Heidi, thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much. I appreciate the very first question that you presented, which was how do we empower others to take the message out? And I think that we're at a stage right now where we're asking what are the questions to ask, right? So the transcendent original question is what possibilities could we see come alive, which all of you are breathing life into. And then even from that are going to emerge the kinds of questions it makes sense to ask next. So thank you for that. Let's go to whoever from the second group would like to share. Sally, please.
Thank you. So Dan, Heath, and I came up with 4 possibilities, although I think those 4 possibilities can expand beyond. Heath talked a lot about we'd like to identify who some of Danny's heroes are, whether they be authors or speakers or individuals, or they can be living, they can be dead. They just can't be fictional. And we'd like to put together something that would be like the Danny 100 or the Danny 50, and let them, have this experience of the living well from within. We'd like to create retreats, and those retreats would expand on the living well from within, conscious leadership, and bring it to destination spas and wellness resorts around the world, such as Como or Six Senses or Guingana or Rosewood, Canyon Ranch, Miraval, Rancho La Puerta. We'd like to create an online community that would be similar to the XCHANGE online community. And for those who haven't experienced that, it's very engaged and very active. And we feel that that online community could be created soon. So it could be all of us as well as the coalition members, and we could get that going. And we'd like to bring the Living Well from Within to the workshop and beyond to Washington, D.C., and bring this to Joe Biden and to congressional leaders, and literally lead, I don't know, maybe we bring this into Congress and we convene a Living Well from Within Day, and we bring it to Washington, D.C. So I don't, Heath and Dan, did I leave anything out?
You got it.
Okay.
You got it. Let's go to DC. Come on.
Yeah, we're ready. We're going back to DC. We were there before, we're going again.
That's awesome. Thank you, Sally. Thank you. A third
Thanks,
group.
Janet.
Wendy, is that you? Go ahead.
Oh, you're on mute. I said, Sally, I'm exhausted. One thing about Sally, she doesn't think small, and I guess Dan and Heath don't either. So those were great. Thank you for bringing those. So we had 2 things that we came up with, and one of them is, and this is not new, but I find this has always worked, to have a campaign pledge. And Karina shared that this is, in the Asian culture, this is very recognizable and looked at in a very positive way. And we know of certain pledges that have worked well, particularly Global Wellness Day. Now we have a pledge from the Green Spa Network, and we're doing something with social impact. So if we came up with the pledge more about, let me help you live well from within. So it can be an I, and then there can be something about how we pass it, how we pay it forward. We also talked about, Karina was very much speaking about bringing it to children. So, things start at when kids are younger and they adopt a mindset, and they can take that through their lifetime. And then Danny shared about the global team conscious capitalism network, and maybe we do something under that. So there's possibilities there as well. And just from a more artistic view or a symbol, I keep going back to the sunflower and what it means and how important it is to Danny, and it's his logo, but use that also as a visual in whatever we do, so it can become very recognizable with living well from within, and even could be something cute, whatever we're doing, we always have sunflowers present. So, and Sally's sister did a beautiful, if you want to show that, Danny, paint piece of art. And I don't know, I just love that. Maybe that can even be incorporated. So that's our
Great
piece.
idea, Wendy. We could make cards out of it and sell them and take the money and put it towards scholarships for those who can attend Living Well from Within. I'll take on that project.
Okay. So Karina, thank you. Danny, thank you. And to everyone, thank you. I think these are great.
Yeah, it's fascinating to hear the different groups' ideas where there's actually some convergence and overlap, even if it's unknowing. Like this third group, when I hear you recognize bringing this to children or to conscious capitalism, it strikes me that I believe, Alexander, you've just launched, or you're in the process of launching, a teen chapter for conscious capitalism. So it's, there's a synchronicity and a convergence of a lot of what was shared here. And just a simple kind of where do we go next as a group. Today was about allowing these ideas to start to be born. And this is all captured in multiple ways on these calls. And then between now and the next call, we can come back together and go further and maybe even start to converge around these ideas. We have plenty of time between now and when we bring the coalition together. We'll have at least one more chance, maybe two more chances to have something so that when that coalition comes together, we can hand to them possible puzzle pieces and then let them raise their hands on how do they want to support what comes next after these initial workshop gatherings. So thank you everybody for being able and willing to show up today. And also, Heidi, I just want to close. I know we began by having space to acknowledge what you're facing, and thank you for modeling and giving us an example of living well from within, especially when it could be a moment where it could be the hardest to do that. Us being able to try and live the very work that we're wanting to bring, I think is an important principle for how we gather. So thank you, Heidi, for how you...
Yeah, I want to share one last thing that's so funny to me. I can't believe I didn't mention retreats, because that's what I've been doing so much of. And I'm at Rancho Valencia, where I just joined as a member, which I never thought I would have done. My good friend Jeffrey Asakawa is one of the owners here. And even just staying here was taking care of myself. I think I mentioned in the beginning, I've had 4 massages by 4 different people. I'm going to be doing a free workshop for the staff here. They're amazing. I have 4 retreats coming up at Canyon Ranch this year. So all of it, just the way it all comes together, and to be here in this space and everyone said I'm glowing. Well, that's because I'm here at this beautiful retreat. So
that's awesome.
Wonderful.
Well, I want to thank you all for this blessed gathering, and Heidi, I want to amplify that you honoring Steve. We've done this in a container of love, and Jon, I just want to, my brother, acknowledge you for your masterful facilitation. I mean, it's just, it is so brilliant to watch you work your magic with such grace and honoring of the process, and you speak with such clarity and wisdom and a depth of heart that reveals the best of humanity. So I just want to honor you deeply, my brother.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you. It's an honor. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Lots of love.
Take care, everybody.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Jon.
Thank
you.
you.
Heidi.
Bye, Mo.
Bye, Dan. Bye, Corinna. Bye, Wendy. Bye, Mo. Bye, Heidi.
Hugs. Big hugs to you, Heidi.
Yeah.